welcome. My name is Hugh Blasky. This is the first episode of the Hugh's House podcast. Obviously, we've not had an episode before, so let me tell you a little bit about what I'm trying to do with this podcast. I want to learn as much as I can about what people do in their lives. So my goal is to get people on here just for, 1 hour power hours, for lack of a better fun term, to just, teach me about the things that they do and why they do it, how they do it, etc. I feel like the more conversations I can have, the more I'm going to learn, the more I'm going to be able to grow, hopefully, as a person. So I'm really looking forward to this series. I think it's going to be really fun when we get maybe 6-7 episodes in and I can start having, difficult conversations. So I'm not religious. So I think it'd be fun to have someone in here that's a pastor, just to have a conversation about religion from a non-religious standpoint versus a religious standpoint. And just things like that are like my goals for this podcast. So the first episodes are going to be fun. We've already got episode 2 lined up, and we'll talk about that toward the end. But yeah, I've got Mr. Jason Downey here with me. I know we're live on his Facebook page as well. So Jason, tell the people a little bit about yourself.
So I am Jason Downey. I'm in my mid-30s, still looking like I'm in my mid-20s.
Hey, that's right.
That's right, living my life kind of the exact same way. Hugh and I go way back-ish, and Hugh, you asked me to come on and kind of talk a little about, what I do for a living.
Absolutely.
I guess I'm not one to like fully flex my nuts, but I have a pretty cool job, right? So
yeah, absolutely.
For all intents and purposes, like I am a professional hacker. That's a short version. Long version is I work for a small security consulting firm, and we get hired to test the digital defenses of corporations.
Hell yeah.
So if they had spent, $1 million over the last year and put a bunch of software in and hired people, and they have a security operations center, and they want to know how well it actually works, they hire someone like us to go in and break in and try to see what we can get out or do or whatnot.
That's awesome. So I guess walk me through like the normal day of being a professional hacker.
Yep. So essentially, because I work for a true like we're a full-blood consultancy, right? So we get hired and we know pretty much nothing about our employee or our client other than that they exist.
Sure.
And first thing is they give us like a scope, right? They say, hey, we have this web app that we think is vulnerable, or hey, we need some social engineering done, which is tricking people and not necessarily through technical means. Or we need, we're curious about if our internal network is susceptible to certain types of attacks,
right?
Or we want to emulate like some, Iranian threat actor or something, right? Like all that craziness. And so we get that assignment, and the first thing of every test is what we refer to as reconnaissance.
Okay.
And so the reconnaissance phase is, we scope out all of the open source information about a company. What's their domain name? Like, what servers do they have that are externally facing? How many of their employees can I find on LinkedIn? Can I find phone numbers or emails? Or did they get breached in the past and there's like password dumps out there? So it's all kinds of things that we can do before we actually touch that company at all.
Wow. So it definitely sounds like there's a ton of research that goes into it.
Yes.
I never really even thought about like that. So I work for a fairly big company myself, and it's always interesting when they send out those phishing emails, and then you never really think twice about it. You're just like, oh, obviously this is a scam. Delete, report it, whatever you need, whatever your company wants you to do with it. So it sounds like before you even get to the step of like trying to even phish someone, it sounds like you're looking at, you're just getting a head count. Can I try to find this person externally before you're even looking at them internally?
Yep.
So how many times has that paid off? Have you ever been able to get into a company through like a person just by like their LinkedIn information?
Oh, 100%. So, the reality, when we watch like hacker movies from the 90s, right? Like there's a guy or girl at their laptop and they're there for 45 seconds. They're like, hey man, I'm in,
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's not how the world works.
Right.
In fact, the matter is, if a company has an external facing service, whether it's whatever they're running, right?
Sure.
And if it's very highly exploitable,
What's an example of an external facing service? So is it
So-
like Amazon, where like you can just like you can go in, log in, purchase something? Is that what you mean by
yeah.
external?
So an external facing service is basically anything that's internet facing.
Okay.
So if you think of like a castle with like a moat, right?
Sure.
Like companies have internal stuff. You know, there's databases and HR information.
So everything behind the wall.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
all. That's all on the
Okay.
inside, and that regular people, they can't just go to like Amazon.com and see that stuff.
Right.
So the external facing stuff for Amazon, like you were saying, is like their storefront.
The landing page.
Yeah. So essentially, like Amazon.com is like one giant web application.
Sure.
That is
Sure.
an external facing, as in like facing the internet.
I got you.
service. Yeah.
I got you. All right. Well, that makes sense. So that's super interesting. And so going back, so you said that you've been able to, just off someone's LinkedIn profile, you've been able to get into on the other side of the moat, for lack of a better word.
So what we typically do, right, is we'll pull like employee head counts and figure out like names and whatnot, and sometimes like we can just like look up because like when a company gets breached, 50% of the time, whatever hacker or whatever, I guess like hacker that's not good like me, right, is going to like dump that stuff on the internet somewhere.
Sure.
And so we can find those breaches, and if there's like old username and passwords that are in that set, well, I know that Hughe works for company A, and I see that, Hughe was included in this breach, and his password was I love Yu-Gi-Oh 123. I wonder if he used...
It's 124.
Right. Yeah. Right? It's like, I wonder if I see their passwords, I love Yu-Gi-Oh 123, and I'm like, I wonder if he uses that same password at work.
Yeah.
And people do.
That's
and
crazy.
So next thing you know, I'm like logged in as this employee because they've got password reuse, and essentially I've jumped that perimeter, in 4 hours worth of work.
So let me ask you this. So the company obviously knows that you're trying to get in. So do they give you access to any of their internal systems, or do you have to? Okay, so they do.
Sometimes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I was going to say, is there, so again, using that same example, you got my I love Yu-Gi-Oh 123 password. Do you have to now jump through another hoop to get into their employee section of their website, or do you already have access to it from the company?
So really, it kind of depends on what the client wants.
Sure.
Like
sure.
because sometimes
Client.
they
You use the word client.
client,
Yeah.
customer.
Yeah.
We say client because we're fancy consultants
No,
or whatever,
sure,
right?
sure.
Yeah. So a lot of times, like it depends on what they're after. Some of them say we give you nothing. Get where you can, and that's it, and that's the end, right?
Yeah.
Other times it's almost like scenario based.
Sure.
It's like, hey, like we had you all test our external last year. One thing that we do pretty often, it's called like an assumed breach, and that assumes that the breach has already happened. So you talk about like, those phishing emails,
Gotcha.
right?
Gotcha.
Fact of the matter is, the way that the majority of attackers are jumping that castle perimeter to get inside, the number one way that they're jumping in is via things like phishing or finding old usernames and passwords, right? So those sort of tests assume that that's already happened. So then we find out, does Hughe as a regular employee, where can I move laterally to? Does he have access to a machine, and this machine happens to have access to some data that's that the client wouldn't want anybody getting access to?
Sure.
And then can I get that out, or can I share that somewhere else, or what does that look like? Can I use that to move to something else?
That's interesting. So when you say targeted, I assume that if if X company deals with, I'm just gonna say, we'll say it's Tesla. We'll just use Tesla as an example because Elon Musk is all over the fucking news right now.
Yep.
So like car design, or like maybe he's got some flying car that he's working on. So like let's say that was the targeted prototype. So you're trying to get the prototype for that flying car out, essentially.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. And so every client has different goals.
Sure.
Some, is it credit card information? Are they saving credit cards for 10,000 customers? Obviously, they wouldn't want that to get out.
Yeah, absolutely not.
Someone like an Elon, they don't want the new model, whatever plans to get out. So that's important to them.
Sure. That's very interesting. I love that. So what would you say the easiest way that you've found to get into a company?
Honestly, that scenario talking about where password reuse, right?
Yeah.
Where a person uses the same password across everything, and then they might have one point signed up for like some janky fitness website, and that
Use the
janky
same password.
and that janky fitness website with no security controls gets popped, but that username and password is the same. So your Yu-Gi-Oh 123 password, right, is the same for their work. And now like I've logged into some work VPN because the password was the same, and
That's crazy.
Yeah.
All right, so our first takeaway from this podcast, we need to highlight this, TikTok this, whatever the fuck we're about to do. Our first takeaway is do not use the same password for your social media, your bullshit health apps, your Popeyes app.
Ever.
Don't use those same passwords for your work emails. Okay, we got this. All right,
I'm gonna go ahead and take that one step further. So because I do what I do,
Sure.
I get messages on Facebook all the time. Hey, my Facebook got hacked, or oh my God, my Instagram is, and everybody wants the answer, right?
Yeah.
They think that they're targeted by something.
right.
In reality, that password reuse is probably responsible for 90% of that.
That's wild.
Where they signed up for some service 5 years ago, it got dumped, and some attacker is just scanning the internet and trying to log into thousands of accounts at a time, and then theirs happened to be.
I love that because between all of us, Jason's probably going to use this as soon as we leave here, but I am notorious for using similar passwords for similar social media. So if you find one, you're probably getting into all my shit.
Oh yeah, no. This has told me to go home and change every password I have.
Yep. So we get our first question here on Facebook. So what do you suggest for someone who has a horrible memory?
So I don't know if we're going to fly this LastPass thing, right? So let me.
Do you want to throw this
Yeah.
up real quick? Yeah,
Yeah.
throw this up for it. Thank you. All right,
Yep.
so you should be able to see this on Facebook.
Yeah. If not, it's a piece of software called LastPass.
LastPass.com is
Yep.
the password.
And so what these are password managers. And I use this piece of software myself, and I use it for all of my stuff.
Okay.
And it does two things. Number one is it gives you a centralized repository that's encrypted on your machine
Yep.
where you can have all your passwords saved.
Oh yeah.
So what I do every day is I turn on my computer, I pull up my, I log in, do whatever, and then I log into this password manager.
Okay.
And so my one password for LastPass is super long, annoying. It's like 30-something characters. It's seemingly random. No one's gonna like crack this. Like it is my secure password. And then within the LastPass app, it saves logins for everything else. So when I create a new account, I'll go to LastPass, I'll type in my username, and I'll hit generate secure password.
Oh yeah.
And it will give me 18 characters that are all random, and then I copy it and paste it, and it is stored in my LastPass vault.
I love that.
So I really only have to remember one password.
Hey, that's great. And I'm assuming you don't have that written down anywhere digitally. It's
No,
probably somewhere physically.
That lives here.
Oh, really?
Yeah, 100%.
Oh,
yeah,
I love
yeah.
that. I love that. I'm not great with like letters and numbers together. That's why I failed at fucking algebra.
Yeah.
So that's not me. I mean, I would love to show you a couple of my passwords I use and then change them immediately, just so you could laugh at how ridiculous some of my passwords are.
I spend a huge amount part of my job like looking at bad passwords. Believe me,
sure.
I get it. When some like system admin has like a 4-character password because they changed the password requirements for themselves to make it smaller and then changed it back so everybody else has to use 15 characters. What a dick,
Yeah. So not to give away too much, but I'm definitely the guy that's just like, oh, it's going to be this, but number 1. And then this, but number 2. And then I just, whenever I have to change my password after 30 days, 60 to 90 days, now it's number 3 and number 4. And
just slowly climbing up the list.
Yeah. Yep. So I'm definitely guilty of that. So that's super interesting. So tell me, I guess, about the hardest time you've had getting into a company. Like, what's the company that like you either just couldn't get into at all, or not the company name, obviously, but the situation, or what was the inevitable breaking point that finally got you in after all the time?
Sure. So so I want to touch on one point, right?
Yeah,
So
please.
all the work that I do. All the work that I do, like we're bound by an NDA. So when I tell some of these stories and they seem kind of like loose, like I'm purposely not saying who it is in specifics.
Absolutely.
I can tell good stories. I can't tell you who it was with. Right?
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. If it's Coca-Cola, it's Coca-Cola, right? You know?
Right. If it was.
Wait till we get it right in the podcast.
To be honest, a lot of the work that I do, is hard. For every one cool story that I have, there's probably 4 stories where I just like rolled my face across my keyboard for 10 days and like got nowhere.
Sure.
Because the difference between like a consulting firm like us and a real attacker, right, is a real attacker, if they're sophisticated enough, they don't have a timeline. They don't have a budget restraint. They don't have resource issues. When you read about those huge hacks like
Right.
Sony, right, and all that was done by, theoretically, like North Korea's government.
Sure.
They've got an army of people that are doing this 24/7.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. It's the same thing with like call centers.
Yeah.
Call centers that are just calling and trying to get your credit card information or
Yep.
get you to send them Target gift cards for 500 fucking
Yep.
bucks or whatever. Yeah.
They've got all the
Yeah.
time in the world. When you're hiring an outside consultant, you have whatever budget that you've allotted for it. And so
Sure.
we've got a limited time. So there are a lot of times when, it'll be like day 3 and I've got nothing. I've found nothing. Like I don't have my original like leg in, my foothold, if you
Right.
will.
Right.
And so when that happens, I'll like ask for kind of like a power up. Be like, okay, hey, we're 3 days in the test. Do you want me to keep trying to bypass this one thing, or do you want to move me somewhere else? And sometimes they move, sometimes they don't. And so a lot of times when we just lose, and really that's okay. Like I mean, it's not nearly as much fun,
Sure.
but I can go to our clients and I can say, hey, here's the 95 things that I've tested. You did great on all these. Like, good job, right?
Right.
Like good on you for having good, defense in depth and protecting yourself.
So you said that's like 1 in 4 times, roughly.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
interesting. I feel like, and what? So I guess my question would be, what do companies do in that situation? Are they happy? Are they? I would assume they're like, oh, my firewall's good. Our employees aren't dumb.
Yeah. So it depends on their goals, and their maturity.
Sure,
So
sure.
typically, if someone is hiring, if they're paying for outside consulting work to make sure that they're secure,
Right.
their security program is probably already a little bit mature, right?
Yeah.
Like they've kind of run through all the basics, and they're actually interested in our feedback.
Hell yeah.
They want to know how they can grow, and they want to know if what they're doing is correct.
Yeah.
Granted, it's not like that all the time. I've written reports where I've torn people apart and they've been pissed at me. Like, we get on this closing call and they're like, you wrote up all this crap. I'm like, no, bro, it's true. I put screenshots. Like, you see, that says Jason Downey, domain admin. Like, I took you for everything.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
I love that though. I feel like if it was me personally, I'd be pretty thrilled to know that X company couldn't get through my software.
Yeah. So, like I said, I can't share any names.
Yeah.
But,
Well, yeah. Obviously.
But for clients that we've had that offer products that I use because it happens sometime, or they're like a competitor of a product that I use,
Yep.
I'll make that swap.
Yeah.
Like
Absolutely.
shit, if I can't get anything, then most likely somebody else can't either. So you've got my business.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because privacy is
Absolutely.
important to me. That security is
All
important
right.
to me.
So note to self: this is going to be our second takeaway from this podcast. Is if you see Downey using something, it's probably got good security. All right. I love
First
that.
question: what phone you got?
So we have talked about digitally, but before the podcast had started, you had mentioned that you are about to attempt something physically. Can you
Yes.
talk about that for a little bit?
Yeah. So, as you know, like I travel, right? And I kind of got this phone call that's like, hey, you have to come back to the United States for work.
Yes. So yeah. So for those of you who don't know, maybe
Yeah.
on Twitch, all of you on Facebook probably know. Downey spends a lot of his time out of the country. We're allowed to say that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. They
Yeah.
know.
Okay. Cool. yeah. So Downey travels a lot. But so you had to come back because you're about to do something physical.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I guess one of the cool things that we get asked to test sometimes is like a company's physical security.
Yeah.
As in, like, can we physically break into a place? Like, can I find a way to get into said company's data center or HR section or finance, or can I manage to steal a laptop and take it out? Some of the things that are in scope for this is I can scale a wall and climb in a second story window. I can steal an employee's badge and clone it and then use that to log in.
Hell yeah.
I can go to the security desk and pretend to be a pest control person or IT from another building. I can use all of those vectors and really anything more to get access into this building. And then once I'm in, then we've got all kinds of like toys where we're like, we're picking locks and we're like dropping Wi-Fi stuff and
Hell yeah.
yeah.
Well, I think it's the perfect job for you.
Yeah.
Again, if you're friends with Downey on Facebook, you've probably seen a couple of his rooftop pictures. This man loves climbing.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
Man, that's awesome. That's really cool.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, I feel like that's just like the perfect job for you.
That's gonna be a great story when I'm done. Ultimately.
So this wasn't even a question. I just kind of want to segue into this. Are you gonna do another job ever? Like, I feel like this is just like the perfect role for you.
No, no, this is it.
Yeah.
So I mean, man to man, it was like 8 years ago, and I sat down. I went to like a hacker conference of people that do what I do, and I'm watching a talk, and some guy is telling the story about doing physical engagements like this, and it clicked. I'm like, this is what I'm doing with
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I love that so much for you. Yeah. I mean, damn, it's so good for you. Secret Agent Downey.
Yes.
Yeah. Secret Agent Downey is what someone just called you in chat. I love that. That's so sick. Congratulations, man.
Thank you.
It's just like one of those things where you wake up, you're doing what you love. You get to do it from where you love.
Yep.
That's so sick. Good for you.
Yeah.
Good for you. We should all aspire to be more like Jason Downey.
I agree. I think that's a great idea. Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm going to take a quick second to kind of talk about the sponsor of this video, and not even just this video. They're sponsoring all of the content that I do. So they're called Barely Normal. You'll see the T-shirt that I'm wearing. A good friend of mine runs a clothing line called Barely Normal. Super good guy. Please make sure you check out his merch. If you're in Twitch, I just linked it. I'm about to post it in the Facebook comments as well. Normal dot, I believe it's that. Make sure you give them make sure you check out their webpage. I believe he has 2 different shirt designs on pre-sale right now. So if you like what he's doing, make sure you use my code Hugheberto for 15% off. I will post that code as well. Hugheberto is the code. It'll get you 15% off your purchase. So definitely give Barely Normal a look. I lost my train of thought there for a second. I'm sorry, guys. All right, perfect. So back to the interview. So safety on the internet. What's that look like to you? Like if you had to break down just safety on the internet.
Sure. So I'm going to cut this into 2 parts,
please.
Right?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, so 2 parts. Even though we're talking about on the internet specifically, when we refer to when we talk about data, like in the security field, there's data at rest and data in motion.
Okay.
And so the difference being like data in rest is something that's stored on a physical device.
Okay.
Like whatever notes and pictures and whatever else I have on my phone.
Well, it's like it's backed up to the cloud, right?
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, data at rest, like it's stored in like a device here, like it's all here.
Okay.
And then there's data that's in transit. Data in transit is as I'm sending stuff to you. Like, so if I send you a picture, right, that data is physically going from my phone to some router, router through a cable, maybe to some satellite, and then it physically goes to you. And so along that physical path, there's ways to secure that. So I preface saying those 2 parts.
No, I appreciate it.
Because that's going to come up. That being said, the number one thing that I think people do on the internet that's bad is overshare.
Okay.
So
give me an example.
We talk about like, the proliferation of social media, and all of our lives are completely documented. Where we live, where we're going, where we've been, what we like,
our jobs, our birthdays, our significant others, potential children, etc.
Yep. And so when I have, part of what I do, like it requires like an attacker mindset. Like I think like an attacker all the time.
Sure.
And so when I see things like it's 12:30 and someone's tagging themselves in their living room, hey, watching a football game, right? Like everything is going great. Geolocated right where they live.
Yeah.
5 hours later, oh, my team lost. I'm drunk at the bar, tagged at whatever local bar, right?
Yeah.
The first thing I think is, well, now I know where they live, and I also know that they're not there.
Yeah. No, it makes sense. So I guess that kind of comes back to you, like, so going back to you trying to physically breach something.
Yeah.
So let's just, in the example we just used, that I watched a football game. I'm pissed off because my team lost, so I'm at a bar now. Yep. So my laptop, my potential badge, everything is now just fair game for you.
Yes.
So it makes sense.
So oversharing I think is number one. And it applies to everything. You see like the Facebook shares, like the street you grew up on and your mother's maiden name put together make your RPG character name. Bro, those are answers to your security questions on Facebook. Like those were those starts. That's a ruse to get people to share things that an attacker is going to exploit and try to get access to information.
Well, first off, my GTA RP name is Hugheberto. So good luck trying to use that for fucking anything. Maybe my porn taste. That's about all you're gonna get.
That's good. I like that.
I hang out with a guy named Tess Tickle.
Okay. So you guys, you're like, I guess like a,
we have
like
a
whole dick clan.
We
Is
have
that
a
what we're talking
whole
about here?
dick clan going on.
Good. JD's nuts. Is that?
Yeah, you could, or you could be Lady's nuts.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All that work.
We're just we've gone so far south. I apologize to anyone.
Yeah. Sorry, Mom, if you're still watching.
I feel like anyone who's watched anything with Hugh at this point knows that
Yeah.
conversations tend to take
Same with
this
him
route
though.
as well.
Same with this mother. Like,
Yeah. I asked. That's where we started. I'm like, can I cuss? And you're like, absolutely. I'm like, okay, good. Okay,
He's
good.
like, all right, I'm safe.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
So we're talking about data and storage, data in motion. Yeah.
Right.
So let's kind of catch back up because I just took us way far off the path. So oversharing, do you think is the first big thing?
Right. Because oversharing, someone that is like me but a bad guy, right? Like
Sure.
they're going to take your overshare and they're going to put together like passwords and recovery information, and they're going to be able to log into your accounts. They're going to be able to access your data as it is at rest in your email or your Amazon account and see your purchase history or be able to order stuff from you. They're going to be able to access stuff because essentially you have not given them access, but you've given them all the stuff to make the key.
Yeah.
You've given them all the information and they can piece that together and use that to get that access. I mean, if you want a good exercise, like go to your email, whatever your email provider is, and click on that forgot password button. And it's going to walk you through the process of how to get your password back. And ask yourself at each one of these steps, how many of them could be solved by somebody that knows you well, knows you a little bit, or doesn't know you at all.
Yeah.
Because my man here went to a pug convention earlier and shared the name of his dog for everybody.
Yeah, that's true.
And how many times have you seen favorite pet as like a password recovery question?
Absolutely. Well, it's first pet. And I didn't have that pet for very long. So good luck. But no, you're absolutely right. Right. Which is really interesting to think about because honestly, like I don't think I've ever really tried to think about that. It's like, what street did you grow up on? Well, all you have to do is Google my parents.
Sure.
Or what was the first elementary school you went to? Well, again, where does his parents live? What's the nearest elementary school to his parents' house?
Absolutely.
Takes you fucking 2 minutes.
And how do you find his parents? Because maybe it's labeled as mom and dad as your family on Facebook.
Yeah.
It's all out there.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So oversharing. Anything else?
We talked earlier about like sort of the password reuse policy, right?
Sure.
I mean, in a perfect world, everybody has unique passwords for everything.
30 characters plus.
30 characters plus, and obviously that's not perfect.
Yeah.
The other thing a safe internet really means to me is like what we refer to as multi-factor authentication.
Okay. 2-factor.
Yeah.
Is there 3-factor? 3-factor?
Yeah.
Okay.
More factors the better, right? Yeah, multi-factor. So when we talk about true multi-factor, it's 2 parts that are different. The first part is always considered something which is like a password or a PIN or whatever. And then the other part can be something that you have or something that you are. And the have and you are, if you think about like your debit card, you have to have a debit card, which is something that you have, and something that which is your PIN.
Sure.
Or sometimes, like thumbprints on our phones, right? It's something that I am because my thumb opens it up. Granted, the thumb by itself is only single factor.
Sure.
Not so good.
Sure.
But
Absolutely.
it should be 2. It should be a password and a thumb.
That's
right?
interesting. That's interesting. So more factors, the better. That's our third takeaway.
Yep.
That's our third takeaway.
Because even if I know your password and I try to log in and I don't have your phone with the authenticator on it, or if I don't have access to your email where it emails that code, I'm not getting in.
Sure. So it's interesting. So I this also just kind of came to me. I don't know why I ever thought about this. So I play RuneScape. I streamed RuneScape for a long time. And when I first started streaming RuneScape, I never blacked out my username. And so I would never hide my login screen. So my password was protected. You never could see what my password was, but you knew how many characters my password was because you could see the asterisks. So anyone that wanted to watch my stream could just go back, see my username, and my username is my email. So it's even worse. You know, so they have my email, they have my username, and they know how many characters my password is. And so all it took was them to, I assume, run some type of algorithm that just tries every possible thing of that many characters till they got through, and they did. They got me for like $500 or $600 in RuneScape Gold, like $500 or $600 USD, like in RuneScape Gold, and left me with nothing. And I quit the fucking game for a while, so I was so fucking mad about it. But eventually I came back, you know, and we play again. But I mean, that's beside the point. But yes, I just was stupid and didn't like better protect myself. So that's huge, you know. And so at some point, even like that guy, because I use that password for other things, you know. So that guy, if he had tried it on other things, he could have gotten into other things I have. I mean, I changed it on everything after that point, but yeah, it was scary. I was pretty mad at myself, and I was pretty mad at the situation.
Yeah.
So,
well, and to be honest, like it happens to almost all of us at some point in our lives, right? Like, at some point, there's some account that we had, you know. The level of impactfulness is different for everybody, but at some point, like we get that violation, right? And so it's because you lost some money. Like, it's difficult to say, like, try not to worry about it because it happens to everybody.
Right.
But what's important is that, you know, you now stay cognizant of, like, that's a very real thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if it helps you sleep better at night, and for those that have gotten in the past, most of the time when it seems like something random happened to an account and all your shit's gone, it's not some crazy cyber stalker that's trying to ruin your life.
Yeah.
You're just the one that got caught up in a spray.
Yeah, absolutely.
Obviously, there are exceptions, right? If you know, domestic violence and, you know, overprotective and then, or not protective, but overbearing, like those things do happen. I'm not saying that they don't, but if you ain't got nobody bad in your day-to-day life, chances are you just got randomly.
Right.
And try to sleep a little better at night knowing you were just a number on a board and not someone's after you directly.
I think it's interesting you just brought that up. Let's kind of talk about that for a second. So you were talking about you know, like someone that's out to get you. Maybe it's like someone you wronged, maybe it's like an ex-partner, or even like a stalker. You know, so what are ways you can protect yourself in those types of situations? Because like especially with domestic partners, they probably know some of your passwords, or they know your pins.
Right.
How can you better protect yourself in those types of situations?
So when, you know, and this is a question that I do get asked kind of a lot, right? It's a bad relationship, and, you know, the banks or whatever, and they're trying to figure out like what's going on.
Absolutely.
You know, so the first thing is your physical safety. Like, you have to make sure that you are physically safe before any of the stuff is attempted. And that's outside of my realm. Please don't. But like, once you are physically okay, the second thing that you have to worry about is the physical access to your devices.
Absolutely.
Whether it's a phone or a laptop, etc. Because ultimately, you can do every step I'm going to talk about after this. But if somebody has physical access to your stuff, it's not valid, right? Because they're going to take it back.
So, just to kind of give an example, so I have a friend who just split with his baby mama, and she had access to like PayPal, like bank, like all the emails and everything like that. So even if you tried to reset the password, like still had access to all that stuff and was able to take, you know, a good chunk from this person. So it's super unfortunate, you know, and like even it's even to the point where, like, even if he had acted fast enough about it, I still think that the partner could have gotten in. So I'm very curious to hear what you're going to say. I'm sorry.
Well, no. And so that touches back to, like, you know, we talk about, you know, sort of the overshare and thinking about things that, you know, someone close to you would know. Because at some point in the industry, we call it like an insider threat. You know, the insider threat in this case might be, you know, an estranged significant other, or you know, maybe like a cousin that took too many drugs, or and maybe,
you know, I didn't even think about that, but
a thousand reasons. Right? So like, they know where you went to school, they know your first dog's name, they know whatever, right? And so that's why you always, the next step after physical safety is to walk through all of those recovery methods for all of your important accounts.
Absolutely.
That's your social media, that's your banks, that's your bills. That's most importantly your email, because your email is the core of how you log into a lot of this stuff.
And recovery.
Yeah.
So,
and if you feel like somebody's going to know the answers to these recovery questions that you already set, then you can't use that anymore. It's a huge pain in the ass to start your digital life over. But if you leave one kink in that chain, then whoever this person is, they're going to be able to get it back.
It all falls.
Especially if that core is your email. Because people do all the time, oh, my bank got, and then they fix their bank, but the way they got in was through their email. And so they just get back in over and over.
Yep.
So step 1, physical safety. Step 2, physically secure your devices. Step 3, take back your email, or AKA make a new one.
Yeah.
And step 4 is like rebuild your digital life.
Damn.
And it's going to take a lot of conversations. You're going to have to call your banks, walk in the branches, be honest about what's going on. Hey, I have someone in my life that's taking my shit over. What steps do you all have in place for people like this?
Sure.
And believe it or not, most places, they do. Oh, well, because you're sitting in our branch and you have your ID and we see who you are, we're, whoever this, counter person is going to walk you through. We're going to make you a new account. We're going to deactivate access to your old one. We're going to alert you when, someone logs into it. That way
or even tries to use that,
Yeah.
For your debit card or something
Right.
like that. Yeah, absolutely.
And we're in PS, or if you go into like your bank and you say you have this problem and they don't want to work with you, get a new fucking bank.
Yeah, 1,000%. Absolutely. Because especially in today's day and age, as we grow digitally, our presence online is only going to grow.
Right.
And so as our presence grows online, so is the need to protect your information, to protect yourself. I'm luckily married, so hopefully my wife and I are together forever. But on the off chance that we ever did unfortunately split, I mean that would be tough. I feel like we both have access to so much of each other's things that I wouldn't even know where to begin. Obviously, you've just laid it out, so I kind of have an idea of where to begin. But like when you're in that situation, you're distraught, you're upset. The first thing the first things you're thinking about in those moments aren't, oh shit, how can I fucking lock her out of my bank account? It's
how can I lock her out of my house? How do I get her out of
here? Well, no, it's how fucking upset I am, and like if I even have the ability to like get out of the funk or whatever I'm in, and so by that point, depending on how malicious your ex-partner was, you could already be drained, and so that's just what's unfortunate. I feel like it's only going to get worse, as we progress, as into this digital age that we're in now. So those are good points that you've laid out so far.
Yeah,
so,
and it's unfortunate, right? Like people learn to weaponize this stuff.
Sure.
And
sure.
Because you like said, the digital age is only growing. Like everything is now, a lot of times like you go into places, try to fill out some physical application or turn it in, they're like, no, go do it online.
I like to use the word weaponized there because when we talked earlier about those call centers that prey on people and try to get their credit card information and stuff like that. We literally have companies in this world that sole function is to try to steal your data.
Yep.
And so I like that you said weaponized there because I think it's so real. There are so many people out there that don't have your interests, like don't have your best interest at heart. If anything, they're trying everything they can to take advantage of you. So, I like that you said that.
Well, in the weaponization, it comes from the fact that like typically when somebody's creating a new product, right, whether it's online banking or a cool shopping app or something that tracks your your movement on your phone. They're not doing it to be malicious.
Absolutely.
They're doing it because they think it's fucking cool. Like,
absolutely.
oh, it tracks how far you run. Like, oh, this is great because now I'm a fitness nerd. They're trying to create some new feature that makes our lives better, and then somebody else figures out how to weaponize it, take advantage of it, make it work in a way that it's not intended to be worked on.
Sure.
I mean, that's what I do for a living. I weaponize stuff that should not be a weapon, right?
Sure. Yeah, it's just so I like getting that perspective. I think it's really interesting. When it comes to the steps taking after maybe a negative breakup, after you've locked down your email, you've locked down your personal self, your personal self is safe, and you've locked down your accounts. Are there any other steps you think you should take after that?
I mean, definitely make sure that you are now doing that unique passwords because if you lock your accounts down and you reuse the same password, I mean, they're just logging right back in.
Yeah.
And the second thing is, use that multi-factor authentication that we logged in.
Yeah.
That way, like, if someone logs into your bank account and it buzzes on your phone, before it's actually a problem.
Reject. Get the fuck out.
Definitely reject. Yeah. And then lastly, I mean, and then run through once you think you've got your whole digital life reset back up, run through it like an attacker.
Sure.
Like, do what you think I would do, right? Or the malicious person, I guess, would do, right? Like try to get in your own email without knowing your password and see what options are available. And if it foils you, it's probably going to fool your other person, right?
Well, as someone that doesn't write down all their passwords, I have been there and been fucking mad as hell that I can't recover my own password. So, but now that we're having this conversation, I'm kind of glad that I couldn't recover my password easily, you know. So,
so that's the entire security industry. Is that kind of like that catch-22?
Sure.
Because like if you really want your computer to be secure, never put it on the internet. But if you really, really want it to be secure, never turn it on. If you really, really, really want it to be secure, go bury it in your backyard.
Yeah, damn right.
But then you've got a computer you can't use, right? So that gray area is where all of us live. It's all about, risk versus whatever application we're using.
Sure.
Et cetera, et cetera.
I just think about, like, instead of burying it in my backyard, like having a secret door in my basement that requires my fucking biometrics to get through the next door. I got to give them my fucking eyeball, and only then can I reach my laptop, Yep. But no, I mean, you're absolutely right. You have to be better about protecting ourselves. And it's just, I definitely have a lot of steps, I think, after I leave here that I want to do for myself to better protect myself, because now that we've just talked for 45 minutes, I realize like a lot of my data is probably susceptible, and so being like doubling down, tripling down, two-factor authentication, make sure that we get that taken care of. So no, it's really good. It's really good. What was the next thing I had on the list? We talked about that. Oh, shopping online. So talking about convenience, everything has the ability to be saved. Especially when you shop on your phone, your passwords can be, saved for future use. Your credit cards can be saved for future use. So it's super convenient, obviously. If I log into Amazon, I can buy something. If I log into Amazon again, I don't have to re-enter that. It's already there. What do you think about that? Do you like that convenience? What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, so I personally use a lot of this stuff.
Okay.
And because once again, we go back to our two different sections. There's that data at rest and there's data in motion.
Sure.
So in these instances, our credit card data is saved at Amazon. Our credit card data is saved.
So on a server somewhere in the middle of wherever.
Yeah. Right. And I'm eventually gonna get burnt, right? But I assume that Amazon is going through a whole lot of steps to make sure that my data is saved.
Well, we hope so.
Yeah,
they make billions of fucking dollars. Jeff Bezos is the second richest man in the world. We would hope they're protecting their customers, their bottom line's info.
Yeah, but I will tell you, I have broken into 5 Fortune 500 companies, and they don't all do that.
All right. Well, he can't tell us which Fortune 500
Can't tell you which ones.
Can't
tell you which ones, but there are some stories that are really bad. But yeah, so I assume that data at rest is taken care of.
Sure.
Other things that I look for are, is it keeping everything? A lot of times just you're going to save my 16 character, like credit card number, but I still got to type in my 3 or 4 digit code, right?
Right.
I'm comfortable with that because the only way someone's going to have that is if they have my physical card. Sure. So I know that I have to know my password to log in. I have to get my multi-factor on my phone, and then I also have to know my 3-character password. Okay. So there are several steps there, and because of that, I'm okay with it.
Okay. What about passwords? So credit card information you're okay with, but passwords?
Yeah. So the only place that I save passwords is in my password vault on LastPass.
Sure. Okay. Again, shout out LastPass because you all need to download LastPass.
Yeah, LastPass, KeyPass, 1Password. There's a bunch of different ones. They run like $20 a year. Highly recommend it. Yeah, so all of my passwords are saved in these vaults. And these vaults are at rest. They're encrypted on my drive. So even if someone gets physical access to my machine, they can't decrypt my password vault without knowing my master password, like the one that I use. Sure. So I look for things like that, if my password is saved somewhere, is it saved encrypted? Like when it's at rest on my computer, can I access it, without my own password?
Sure. So for someone like me, I don't have LastPass, excuse me. So I have my password saved on probably 50 different websites out there somewhere, more than that even potentially. Should I be worried? Obviously, some of these are probably less protected than others.
I mean, should you be worried? You know what? Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, right? Especially if there's any kind of password reuse.
Right.
Because you know what? Amazon.com, billion-dollar company, Jeff Bezos, probably doing things right.
Yeah.
Yu-Gi-Oh! Card Trader 7.net. Are they doing all the steps that they need to
Dueling
take?
Book. Anyone here? Dueling Book. Dueling Book probably isn't protecting our password. So if you're using the same password on Dueling Book that you use for work, Twitter, etc., you probably change that shit. So
This is how it used to be dueling networks.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So shout out to all my Yu-Gi-Oh friends. Change your passwords.
Yeah, because once again, somebody created a service that they thought was cool for you all to use, and there wasn't their intention to be malicious. But somebody got in and they weaponized it, right?
Sure.
And so now they've got username and password.
Well, when I think about the social media I used in high school that I haven't even touched. I mean, even MySpace, for example. When's the last time you logged into MySpace? But granted, your password, the password used for MySpace is probably not the password used now.
Hopefully, it's
but
not.
if it is,
Yeah,
you should probably change it. And
I don't even use the same email from MySpace.
right. And I also think about apps. I think about apps that I maybe downloaded for a certain purpose within the past year or so that I don't have on my phone anymore. Those passwords might still be the same as one of the ones I use for something important.
Yep.
So now if that shitty app I downloaded for no reason gets compromised, now they could potentially use that to get into something else.
Yep.
So I think my biggest takeaway for myself is I just need to go home and create a few different passwords. I need to create a LastPass is what I need to do. I think LastPass is what I need to do as soon as I get home, and then just make some crazy ridiculous thing that only I know. And then yeah.
Well, and so everybody, in the industry, we call them like risk models, right? Like, what level of risk are you comfortable in? What does it look like for an attacker?
Sure.
So my mother and I have obviously had hundreds of conversations over the years as she's like become more savvy with tech. Good job, Mom. But it seemed like all through the 90s, people were like, never ever write down a password. That's the worst thing that you could ever do.
Yeah.
But in reality, if you have a notebook that's in a drawer at your house and it has, passwords that are written kind of like halfway in code, like don't write, JC Morgan Chase investment account, but if you just wrote like JPC,
sure,
and then a password there, someone, in order for that to negatively affect you, someone's gonna have to physically break into your house. They're gonna have to find that notebook. They're gonna have to know what it is. And then they're going to have to be the same kind of person that physically breaks in and does things like steal stereos, and also the person that's computer savvy. There's probably not a whole lot of that
just
going on.
Just going through your desk looking for your notebooks?
Yeah.
I think about Da Vinci. I don't know if you guys know, but Da Vinci used to write all his notes backwards so that he could only read them in a mirror. I kind of think about that in my head. Just like doing things like that. You can do invisible ink, things like that. I think we have a question here. Do you allow utilities like LG&E to save your credit card info? Do you think that that's safe?
I do. Because they like LG&E specifically, I know that they have they're required to retype in like your 3 digits, and that's after I've logged in, and so I do let some of the local utilities use that stuff. Yeah, right. but there's just like a small mental checklist that I always use before I do that.
Sure.
And the unfortunate reality is there's a certain level of trust with all this stuff. Right. Even if we click that box and say don't save my shit, we're trusting that they don't do it anyways.
Right.
And
I also think back to like the days where I was on like Livewire and stuff like that, and how many times I probably downloaded a keylogger by accident. Like if you find out that let's say that you find out that someone's already gotten access to your system, what can you do about that?
Ooh, so that's a deep. Okay, so
sorry.
No. So
I just went left. Curveball. Shit, curveball.
I guess I sort of glazed over that when I talk about securing like your physical devices earlier.
Sure.
In my head, that's what that meant to me. More so than my phone is safe and in my pocket, but also is it free with we use the term malware. Malware is short for malicious software.
Absolutely.
So is it free of malware? Is there keyloggers? And to be honest, you just gotta wipe your shit. You have to start your computer over. You gotta blow it all away, and you gotta rebuild it. Same with your phones.
So how would you even know? I feel like it would take you getting hacked in, or like one of your accounts becoming compromised before you even know.
Well, so they refer to it as like kind of like stalkerware, and it's sold where like you can go online, you can pay $30, and they advertise it as like find out what your kid's doing at the mall. Number one, if you're spying on your kid because they're going to the mall, be a better parent. Have a conversation with your child, please.
Well, first off, if my kid's going to J-Mall and not telling me, we might have to have another conversation. So,
is there a problem with J-Mall? Is there a problem?
No problem.
Is there a problem?
No problem. No problem
at
with
the
J-Mall.
Jefferson Mall? Do you have an issue with the Jefferson Mall?
No, absolutely.
All I know
not.
is if they go to J Mall and I'm not brought back Chinese food, then we're fighting.
I agree with that.
Like-
I agree with that. That's our producer Kendall, who's off screen right now. Everyone say hi to Kendall.
Oh, hello.
After he makes like his fourth comment, then you introduce him.
Absolutely.
So it's just this
Well,
random
I'm
voice
sure
for the
at
first
least a couple people like from the Twitch side have
Listen.
been like, that voice sounds familiar.
Absolutely. For
The
those
tone
of
doesn't
you,
sound as aggressive, but
for those of you
voice
who don't
sounds
know,
familiar.
Kendall is our producer. He makes sure that we look good, sound good. So thank you so much to Kendall. Shout out Kendall. So everybody show my boy Kendall some love. But yeah, nothing wrong with J Mall. You know, we go to J Mall sometimes just for the Chinese food. I definitely agree. Speaking of which, China. I'm just kidding. We can talk about that after the podcast is over.
Yeah.
the
but no-
chopstick is there.
But back to the overall point, right? Is
Yeah,
malware. Like, how do you know that your physical device is clean or if you've been
Sure.
compromised?
Sure.
You know, my advice always is if you number one, don't download shady shit on the internet. You know, don't download random apps.
Yeah.
Luckily, you know, Billy Gates has done us right the last couple years, and you know, they're like Microsoft Defender, which is built into Windows, is actually pretty decent.
Hell yeah.
Like,
Well, that's good to know.
yeah, so
You-
they're kind of taking care.
Our
of
Apple fans are a little more screwed, but that's okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
let them tell you apples don't get viruses, which is complete horseshit.
Yeah.
But, so you know, luckily, you know, Billy Gates is looking out for us a little bit, and
Sure.
there are some things in place. But number one, you know, don't download shady things from the internet. And if you feel like that you've done some questionable behavior, honestly, you want my advice? Just pay $10 for porn. Just pay it. Get it over with. Like, we're all adults. We can afford it. If it takes $25, get a couple OnlyFans subscriptions.
Right.
Like,
Right.
stop going to free
That-
shady shit.
Listen, that porn video, or excuse me, that link that says that video game can help you ejaculate in 10 minutes or 10 seconds or whatever they're advertising to you.
See EJ on a
Do
podcast?
do not give them your information.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
But-
good to know.
Yeah. So yeah, stay away from you know, shady stuff on the internet. You know, if you feel like that you are leaving a domestic situation where someone had physical access to your stuff, maybe even like while you were sleeping and or whatnot, assume that you've been breached.
Sure.
Right. You know, and at least take some steps. You know, whether that's taking it to a friend who is computer savvy, you know, going to like Geek Squad or some shit, just being like, hey, can you just scan my system? The peace of mind is worth $50. Just, you know, just spend it, get it over with, and hopefully they can help you out and do you right.
Hell yeah, I love it. So I feel like the only other thing at this point is if you do feel like your information's been compromised, like let's say that maybe you get like, so for me, for example, I have a Geico personal identification like theft alert that's set up, and it like sweeps the dark web every however much to look and see if like my social's been compromised or anything like that's been compromised. It's like $7 a month. I just pay it for the peace of mind.
Yep.
So let's say that comes back one day and it says, hey, your social's been leaked here, here, and here. What can I do? Like what steps can I take? Or not even
Yeah.
social, even if it's a password, just anything.
Well, yeah. So your number one, like, a lot of those services are definitely worth it, and they do good
Yeah.
jobs. Essentially, like when I talked about earlier about how where I'm scanning the internet, like looking for these dumps of information, the same things that they're looking for, I'm looking for.
Sure.
And so stuff like that does exist. And so yeah, so if you get an alert and you're like, hey, this account has been compromised, you know, do that mental think back. Like, what all is on this account? Did I shop on this account?
Yeah.
Is my home address on this account? You know, did I plug my social anywhere?
Sure.
And then start, you know, pull out a piece of paper and start drawing lines. Well, I used this password, and this password was the same for this application.
Yep.
So I'm assuming that this application is probably burnt too. I should change that. And then sort of start the alerting process. You know, call your bank. Hey, you know, can we add alerts to my account, or is there extra monitoring that, you know, we can turn up? Or, you know, say, you know, your phones and your emails, like look for all of those features and just have conversations with the subscriptions that you pay for, with the you know, the products that you're a customer of. Like,
Sure.
go to your people and say, hey, you know, I think this has happened. Would you offer to help me out in this situation?
Yeah, absolutely.
And once again, like, if your bank tells you to go fuck yourself, you're on your own.
Get a new bank.
Get a new bank.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely agree with that. That's good advice. I mean, that's good advice. I can't think of a situation. I mean, I haven't had anything come up in a couple years. You know, I feel like
Yeah.
I remember like maybe like 2018, 2017 or something like that, getting an email saying like, "Oh, your social's been leaked on the dark web." Well, you know what? I'm in like major credit card debt. Like I've only got like $100 in the savings account. If they want my $100, like, you know what? Come on.
Yeah.
So, but things are different now. You know, we've fixed a lot of those things. So if someone got in my information now, they could do a little bit of damage, and we don't want that.
Yeah.
You know, so
even the inconvenience, like even if you don't have shit, like if someone just pretends to be you enough, like.
Well, I guess because they can open accounts in your name. They can open a credit line or whatever.
What if you say you got to pay for dinner and your bank locked you out because they were doing their job because somebody found your shit?
Yeah.
And now it's like you can't pay for dinner because that alone like is worth having some kind of monitoring.
You know what? Toss me an apron. I'm doing dishes tonight.
Let's go.
Like that's
It's not beneath me. I'll do it.
Hell yeah! All right. Well, that was all the questions I had. Do you have any like parting advice for anyone? Before I open, because I do want to open it up to questions. So Facebook, Twitch, this is the time. If you have questions about internet security or internet safety, go ahead and put those in the chat for us now. And while you all are typing those and putting those in the chat, any parting pieces of advice to be safe on the internet?
Yeah, mostly, I mean, the 3 big points that I really want to drive home are, number one, please don't overshare on the internet.
Sure.
Things like, like I do tag myself physically at places. I will do it after I leave.
Yeah.
Like I tag myself at Louisville Cream all the time.
He really does though.
All the time.
Louisville Cream needs a sponsor, my boy Jason.
They should.
Yes.
I'll tattoo that logo on my neck. Like, give me the ice cream cone. But I always tag myself after I leave.
That's smart. That's smart.
And this was I've just always been a little bit paranoid, right? But like ultimately, I want somebody to see that I'm at Louisville Cream when I'm not actually there.
Yeah.
Because maybe they're trying to break in when I'm at home. Maybe they just want to try and beat me up. Like, I don't want either one of those problems.
I just want to say, if you're trying to break into Downey's house while he's here, that's the worst mistake you could possibly make.
Really bad.
The man doesn't even have pot figures anymore. Like, we trying to steal from him his computer. I mean, it's a pretty nice computer. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah. But you can't get in it. Like, you can't get anything from it.
I also feel like if you're trying to fight Downey, also probably not making a correct decision at that point.
Well, you could have done that 2 years ago when he live streamed his location literally every night of every fucking day.
And they never showed up. They never showed up ever. Yeah.
No, they never did.
They don't want smoke, man.
Yes,
right. They want that smoke.
They don't want the smoke.
They don't want the smoke. Yeah.
All right, number 2.
Yeah, number 2 is unique passwords.
Sure.
Password resharing is the number one way that I break into companies. It is the number one way that people are breaking into you. Password reshare.
Fix it. Yeah. Fix it. Last pass. Pass.
Number 3, multi-factor authentication. I realize that I've kind of beat those two points up to death, but it is a life changer. When you get a notification on your phone that someone's trying to log into your email and it wasn't you. It's like on one hand, it's a breath of fresh air, but on the other hand, it's awareness. It's like, holy shit, if I didn't have this in place, my life was fucked.
Absolutely. Changing everything on that, even as closely remotely like correlating with that immediately.
But because they didn't get in, the only thing you have to change is that one password.
Yeah, that's smart. That's so smart. I love that. I love 2-factor authentication. So I've got it on a good amount of stuff. I think I might need to try to get it on some more.
Anything that's important should have it.
All right. Yeah. Well, I don't have any questions in the chat. Everyone's being kind of quiet today. Besides Louisville Cream, is there anyone you'd like to shout out or promote?
Ooh.
He said, ooh.
Yeah. I mean, I could talk about food, like local places all day. Like what part of town are you in?
That's right. All right, Spinelli's.
Spinelli, we got Burger Boy.
That's right.
Dude, I haven't had Burger Boy in God knows how long. Yeah. Oh my lord.
So pre-COVID, I was living in Old Louisville, and I remodeled a kitchen.
He just told you all where he lived, by the way, just so y'all know.
Used to live.
Used to
live. Yeah. Used to live. Yeah.
He knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
He knows what he's doing.
Pre-COVID, I lived in Old Louisville. You like that sentence? And I was remodeling the house to make it better, and I destroyed the kitchen. As in, like, I ripped the cabinets out. Like
I saw pictures online.
Yeah, well, 3 days later, it's like we're shutting all the restaurants down. Burger Boy saved my life. I went to Burger Boy every day for like 4 months.
Can I tell you a secret?
Sure.
I've never had Burger Boy.
Oh my lord!
What?
What are you doing?
Yep, never had Burger Boy.
I'm calling Rachel.
She's
fucked up. Like,
Rachel said Burger Boy.
Well, yeah, I'm saying she married you, and you ain't never been there. That's the problem.
That's like you're too shit faced to go anywhere else. You really don't want to go to Waffle House, and it's just within walking
My
distance.
shit face was always Spinelli's. It was always Spinelli's.
See, my shit face was Burger Boy way before it was.
I'm always sober, and I eat both of those places.
All right. Well, hey, listen, thank you guys so much for hanging out with us tonight. we definitely appreciate it. This was the first episode. I'm going to be doing episode 2 here in 2 weeks. I believe the date is Thursday the 26th. All right, somebody confirm it. The 26th is Thursday. Yes, it is. All right, Thursday the 26th, we'll be back live for episode 2. We won't be live on Downey's Facebook page. So if you are on Facebook, let me link you to where you can watch episode 2. Oh my god, I can't fucking spell. Alright, anyway, so that's where you can find episode 2 if you're on Facebook. We will be live there Thursday the 26th. I am having a gentleman who you all may or may not know. His name is Corey Holt. We love Corey Holt. He and I, so he's a bartender, for those of you who don't know. I've never bartended in my life. I've been a barista, but I've never been a bartender. So I want to pick his brain about some do's and don'ts, things not to do at the bar, things to do at a bar. One of the things we're going to talk about is what your bartender does when looking out for like people trying to spike drinks and things like that. So we're going to have a lot of conversations about that. I'm very excited to have him on. He's a wonderful person, been a bartender for a long time. So I'm really just excited to have him come in here and kind of pick his brain. Also, I'm excited to find out all the bullshit I've been doing wrong at the bar that's probably pissed some bartenders off. So, but no. Yeah, so episode 2 will be Thursday the 26th. You can find us on twitch.tv/Collective Conscience. And then if you haven't already, make sure you go to barelynormal.co. That is my clothing sponsor. Shout out Michael. He's a wonderful guy, takes great care of me. So, Kendall, thank you for producing. You did a great job tonight. Jason,
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for coming on. We very much appreciate it. And thank you for letting us reach out to your Facebook audience as well. So, all right. We'll see you in 2 weeks, guys. Thank you all for hanging out with us.